All right, we're going to continue looking at trigonometry, which is basically the study of right triangles and all the different aspects of how the angles are related to the lengths of the sides. And we're going to build off of what we've been working on. So, for those of you who did really well with the last section, you should do great with this. For those who maybe didn't do so great, hopefully this will help you to kind of catch up. So, just to remind us, remember we said SOHCAHTOA is kind of the way of remembering um, the three ratios. But you don't need to have them memorized because we can just use our notes. So sine is the ratio of opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is the ratio of the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And tangent is the ratio of opposite over adjacent. So what we worked on before, we were missing one of the two sides that we were working with. We knew the angle, we knew one of the sides, we needed to find the other one. What we're going to do today is actually look at kind of the opposite of that. In this case, we're going to know both of the sides that we have, and we're going to use that to find the angle. And again, Desmos is going to do most of the work for us. As long as we set it up correctly, it should be pretty easy to look at. So I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and draw this figure in your notes. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but the better we can do, the more likely we are to have an accurate thing to look at. If all you write down is the answers, it may not be as helpful as for you when you look back at notes later. All right, the very first thing we're always going to do, just like we've done before, is label the sides. Okay, so I'm going to find the right angle. I'm going to go to the opposite side. I'm going to label that hypotenuse. I always start there. That's the easy one. Then I'm going to go to my angle. Now, in this case, we don't know the angle yet, but we know this is the angle we're going to work with. So we know the angle is always between the hypotenuse and the adjacent side, which means this one over here is the opposite. All right, just like in the past, we've got two sides that we're working with. In this case, we do not need the hypotenuse. So all we have is opposite and adjacent, so we're going to be using tangent. So we know tangent of the angle is equal to opposite over adjacent. Okay? In this case, we don't know the angle. I'm going to go ahead and call it X rather than a question mark because I think that's kind of weird to look at. So we know tangent of something is equal to, my opposite is 20, my adjacent is 40. And the cool thing is, again, Desmos is already set up to do this. So what we're going to be typing into to Desmos is we're going to use what's called the inverse tangent. And that's going to tell us what our angle is. So I'm going to go to Desmos. And the first thing I'm going to do is make sure I'm on degrees, which I'm not. So I'm going to switch that over. All right. So I'm going to open up my keyboard and we're going to go to this function spot. And you can see we had sine, cosine, tangent, and then right next to that are our inverse. So these are the ones we're going to use when we don't know the angle. So I'm going to hit tan inverse, 20 divided by 40. And that's going to give us our angle. And we're just going to round to the nearest whole number. So 26.5, we're going to go ahead and round that to 27. And that is our angle. Okay. As a way of checking, especially in terms of making sure you've got your radians turned on correctly, your angle, it's always going to be an acute angle. So it should be somewhere between 1 and 90 degrees. Okay. If your angle's not between 1 and 90, you've done something wrong. And you may want to check, especially to make sure that you're on degrees. Okay, so again, that's clicking this little wrench and ensuring that that's set up correctly. Okay, all right, let's look at another example. Again, I would encourage you to draw the picture so that you can practice labeling the sides. When you're doing your practice assignment or a power assignment, I would suggest drawing them in onto a piece of paper, onto your marker board, whatever works for you. But drawing it and labeling it, it really is going to be helpful. Okay, here's my right angle. So directly across from that, that's my hypotenuse. Here's my angle. Angle is always between the hypotenuse and the adjacent, which leaves this to be the opposite. Again, I'm going to call this x rather than question mark. All right, it looks like in this case we do not need the adjacent side, so opposite and hypotenuse tells me we're going to use sine. All right, so sine of x, we don't know what that is yet. Opposite is 32, hypotenuse is 58. So we just need to find the inverse sine of 32 over 58. Now, as you get better at these, you may not have to write down this step. Maybe you're just going to go straight to Desmos. But by writing it down right now in the notes, again, it helps you remember when I go into Desmos, this is what I'm going to type in. Maybe even make a note of this. Just say this is what you're going to type into Desmos. Okay? Give yourself some instructions so that when the time comes, you remember what to do. Okay. I'm just going to go down here and make a new line here. So I'll do sine inverse. I forgot my numbers. 32 over 58. So 32 divided by 58. So 33.4. So I'm just going to keep that at 33. So remember when you're rounding, in this case, we're rounding to the nearest whole number. So we're just going to cut it off right there. So 5 or less, we just let it rest. So it's either going to stay at 33 or go to 34. If this is 5 or more, we raise it up to 34. All right, let's look at maybe just a couple more, make sure we're on the right track. Again, take a moment to copy down the figure so that we can take some time to label it and get our problem set up correctly. All right, we've got our right angle here, so across from that is my hypotenuse. Here's the angle we're going to work with. The angle is always between the hypotenuse and the adjacent side, which leaves this to be opposite. Again, I'm going to call my angle x. So it looks like we do not need the hypotenuse again on this one. So opposite and adjacent tells me we're going to be using tangent. So I know tangent of some angle is going to equal 83 over 46. So I'm going to do the inverse tangent of 83 over 46. All right, so I go back to Desmos. I already have the inverse tangent up here, so I'm just going to use that one again, and I'll just type in 83 over 46. And that gives me 61. So my correct answer is 61 degrees. When you're typing these into Edulastic, you don't need to put the degree symbol, just put 61. The degree symbol is a little hard to find in that system. All right, let's just look at maybe one more here, make sure we're on the right track, and then we'll have you try some on your own. Again, take a moment to copy that down. Okay, across from the right angle is my hypotenuse. My angle is always between the hypotenuse and the adjacent, which leaves this to be the opposite. We do not need the opposite, so we're just using adjacent and hypotenuse, which is cosine. So we have cosine of x equals adjacent is 10, hypotenuse is 13. All right, so inverse cosine of 10 over 13. Again, I would probably Just maybe set these up as you use them, and then you can just go back in and change the things that you need. So 39.7. Again, we're going to round that to the nearest whole number. So you're either going to stay at 39 or go up to 40. Since this is 5 or more, we raise the score. So our x is 40. Okay. I want you to take some time to try some of these on your own. Check your answers as you go, and let me know if you have questions.